Your body holds an incredible secret. You have enough DNA to stretch from the sun to Pluto and back, not once, but twice. If you took all the DNA from your cells and lined it up, it would measure over 10 billion miles long. That's 40 times the distance from Earth to the Moon. DNA is microscopic, but it's tightly packed inside your cells. If you stretched out just one strand, it would be about 6 feet long. Right now, your body is carrying the blueprint for an interplanetary road trip. And you didn't even realize it. Science is full of surprises. Boiling water? Seen it. Freezing water? Done that. But what if I told you water can do both at the same time? This is called the triple point, a magical moment where temperature and pressure are perfectly balanced, and water exists as a solid, liquid, and gas all at once. In a vacuum, where pressure is super low, water starts boiling. But because heat escapes so fast, it also freezes instantly. It's like water can't decide what it wants to be. This isn't just a cool trick, it's science in action. And guess what? This same phenomenon explains why water behaves so weirdly in space. From labs to outer space, water is full of surprises. Science is mind-blowing, right? Want more mind-bending science facts? Hit like, subscribe, and let's blow your mind together. Imagine a planet where it rains molten glass. Sideways. Sounds like something straight out of a sci-fi movie, right? Well, buckle up, because this place is real. Meet HD 189733b, a jaw-dropping exoplanet located 64 light-years away. This isn't just any planet. It's a cosmic nightmare that makes hell look like a vacation spot. With surface temperatures soaring over 930 degrees Celsius, this planet is hotter than a pizza oven on max blast. And trust me, you wouldn't last a second out there, but wait, it gets crazier. This planet is whipped by insane winds blowing at over 8,700 kilometers per hour. That's 7 times the speed of sound. These aren't just breezes, they're supersonic hurricanes on steroids. And here's the kicker, it rains molten glass. Yep, you heard that right. Shards of burning glass are hurled sideways because the winds are so ridiculously strong. Imagine trying to walk through that storm. So, if you were thinking about booking a trip to HD 189733b, maybe rethink that plan. Unless you're into getting sandblasted by flaming glass shards, this is one destination you'll want to skip. Space is absolutely wild, isn't it? Wars have been fought over land, power, and, believe it or not, a pig. In 1859, the US and Britain nearly went to war over a single pig on San Juan Island, a tiny piece of land between Washington State and Canada. It all started when an American farmer, Lyman Cutlar, found a British pig rooting through his potato patch. Frustrated, he shot it. This tiny dispute spiraled out of control. Both sides sent warships and troops to the island, ready to fight over who owned the land. But here's the twist. No one actually fought. The soldiers just stood there for months, waiting for orders, and probably wondering why they were there in the first place. In the end, the only casualty was the pig, the very thing that started it all. Eventually, cooler heads prevailed. Kaiser Wilhelm I of Germany was called in to mediate, and the pig war ended with a peaceful agreement. San Juan Island became US territory, and the pig, well, it became history. History is wild. Want more crazy stories? Hit like and subscribe. Imagine flying over Australia and spotting a bright pink lake. Nope, it's not Photoshop, it's real. This is Lake Hillier, a lake that stays pink all the time, even if you scoop it into a glass. So, why is it pink? It's all thanks to special algae and bacteria that love salt and produce a pink pigment. And get this, you can float in it. Just like the Dead Sea, Lake Hillier is super salty. But maybe don't drink it. And the wildest part? Unlike other colorful lakes, Lake Hillier never changes color. Ever. Nature is weird and awesome. Did you know that a human could literally swim through a blue whale's veins? The blue whale is the largest animal to ever exist, reaching up to 30 meters long and weighing nearly 200 tons. Its heart alone can weigh as much as a small car, and its main arteries are so massive that a fully grown human could fit inside. Imagine floating through a river of blood inside the world's biggest heart. Sounds like something out of a sci-fi movie, right? But this is 100% real. Just another mind-blowing fact about the gentle giants of the deep. Want more crazy animal facts? Hit like and follow for more. This teaspoon? Seems pretty ordinary, right? But what if I told you that just 1 teaspoon of something out there in the universe could weigh a staggering 6 billion tons? Welcome to the mind-bending world of neutron stars. The incredibly dense remnants of massive stars that exploded in supernova. These cosmic leftovers are so dense, they defy imagination. Just 1 teaspoon of neutron star material weighs as much as an entire mountain. That's right, a mountain. How is this possible? Neutron stars have gravity billions of times stronger than Earth's. This immense force crushes atoms together, eliminating all empty space and packing matter into an unimaginably dense state. It's like taking all the space in an atom and squishing it down to nothing. And if you somehow manage to get your hands on a teaspoon of this material, well, let's just say it wouldn't end well. It would instantly fall through your hand, through the earth, and keep going until it reached the other side. The universe is full of wonders that challenge everything we think we know.
Did you know hot water and cold water sound completely different when poured? And no, it's not just your imagination, it's science. Hot water has lower viscosity, which means it's thinner and flows faster. That's why it makes a lighter, higher-pitched splash. Cold water is thicker and flows slower, creating a deeper, chunkier sound. It's like the bass drop of the water world. Think you can tell the difference? Try this at home, pour 2 glasses and test your ears. You might just discover you're in a science superhero. Science is all around us and it's amazing.
Imagine floating through the vast emptiness of space, and suddenly you catch a whiff of rum and the tangy sweetness of raspberries. Sounds like a sci-fi dream, right? Well, it's real. Meet Sagittarius B2, a massive gas cloud near the center of our Milky Way. This cosmic giant is packed with ethyl formate, the same chemical that gives rum its signature smell and raspberries their delicious flavor. So, if you ever find yourself drifting through the galaxy, don't be surprised if it feels like you're sipping on a cosmic cocktail. But maybe don't actually try to taste it. Who knew space could be so flavorful? The universe is full of wild surprises. What's the craziest space fact you know? Drop it in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more mind-blowing cosmic content. When you think of pizza, you probably think of Italy or the US, right? Well, guess what? The real pizza kings are Norwegians. That's right, Norway tops the charts in pizza consumption. On average, Norwegians eat around 5.4 kilos of pizza per person every year. That's about 50 slices per person. And the star of the show, Grandiosa. This frozen pizza is so beloved, it's practically Norway's unofficial national dish. It's been the best-selling frozen pizza in Norway for decades. While Taco Friday is big in Norway, Saturdays are all about Pizza Saturday. It's a tradition as Norwegian as fjords and wool sweaters. And here's a fun fact. Grandiosa is so iconic, it even has its own fan base and memes. Norwegians don't just eat it, they celebrate it. So next time you think of Norway, don't just picture fjords and Vikings. Think pizza. And if you ever get the chance, try a slice of Grandiosa. You might just understand why Norwegians are obsessed.